She called me a broke nobody at a restaurant I actually owned, loud enough for the whole place to hear. She mocked my clothes, my car, even questioned if I could afford dessert. But when the waiter walked over and said, "Sir, would you like this charged to your owner's account?" the look on her face was worth every second of her cruelty. This is the story of how I stayed quiet long enough to watch someone expose exactly who they were before I showed them who I really am. She called me a broke nobody at the restaurant until the waiter called me sir and handed me the bill I owned. And trust me, you want to hear how it ended. Welcome to the Reddit channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on exciting stories. I should have known from the moment we matched. She was stunning, long brown hair, a figure that looked like it belonged in a music video, and confidence that could silence a room. Her first message to me wasn't "Hey" or "Nice to meet you," but "What kind of car do you drive?" At first I laughed, thought maybe she was just joking, or maybe she was one of those girls who like cars. I replied, "An old Honda Accord that squeaks when I turn left." She didn't laugh. Instead, she left me on read for 6 hours. But then she messaged back, "At least you're honest. Want to grab dinner sometime?" That should have been my second red flag. But no, my dumb self thought, maybe she's just misunderstood. I'm not gonna lie, I've done well for myself. I started a business in my 20s, flipped it by 30, and now I invest in small ventures while quietly running a couple restaurants under other names. I dress simple, drive simple, and I don't lead with money. If someone doesn't see your worth until they see your wallet, they're not your people. But sometimes we all get curious. So I said yes. We agreed to meet on Saturday. I picked the spot, one of the restaurants I secretly owned. Nothing too flashy, just upscale enough to test the waters. When I arrived early, she was already there, sitting at the bar, legs crossed, on her phone, barely glancing up. She didn't say hi, just looked at me and said, "You really do drive a Honda." I laughed, trying to play it cool. "Yup, gets me where I need to be." She gave me this look, half confusion, half judgment. Well, I guess it's charming. Charming. Translation: this dude's broke, but maybe I'll get a story out of this. We got seated at a booth by the window. I tried to make small talk, asked about her work, her hobbies. She barely responded. Spent most of her time taking selfies with the wine glass and fixing her hair in the reflection of the knife. Then she asked, "So what do you do? I mean, you said you run some things. What does that even mean?" I smiled. "I own a couple small businesses. Nothing too big." She raised an eyebrow. "Like, what kind of businesses?" I shrugged. "Restaurants, mostly. A bit of consulting." She sipped her wine. "So, you're like a manager or something?" I wanted to laugh. Not because it was offensive, but because she had already made up her mind. She didn't hear owner. She heard manager. Because to her, I didn't look like someone successful. No designer suit. No Rolex. No gold chain screaming I have money. Please validate me. She leaned back and gave me this patronizing smile. "That's nice. Keep grinding. Maybe one day you'll make it big." I nodded. "Yeah, that's the hope." Then she asked, "Do you ever think about upgrading your car? Like, how do you even go on dates with that thing?" I paused. "I mean, you're on one right now, aren't you?" I said. She laughed. Not the cute kind of laugh. The kind that cuts deep. "You're funny," she said. "I just never thought I'd be on a date with someone who drives a Honda." Like, seriously, it was at that moment I realized something. She wasn't here for me. She was here because she thought maybe, just maybe, I had potential. But the second she didn't see money up front, she was already writing me off. Yet, something in her still clung on, just in case I surprised her later. But I wasn't here to impress her. I was here to see her clearly. Dinner came. The food was great. Of course it was. I designed half the menu myself years ago. But she barely touched hers. She was too busy posting stories, tagging luxury dining, and adding filters to make her followers jealous. "Do you do this often?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Go on dates with people just to take pictures?" She shrugged. "Not my fault if you picked a photogenic place." I smiled, but inside I felt something twist. This wasn't a date. This was her content. She barely asked me a single personal question. Didn't care about my past, my values, my thoughts. The entire conversation revolved around material things. Brands, vacations, designer handbags. She even asked, half joking, if I could at least afford to split the bill. That was it. That was the moment I stopped hoping she was anything more than what she presented. But I didn't get up. I didn't storm off. No, I leaned back in my seat, folded my hands, and waited for dessert. Not because I wanted to eat it, but because I was planning something far sweeter. She had no idea who she was sitting across from, but she was about to find out. Dessert arrived, but she didn't even look at it. She was too busy scrolling through her phone, probably checking how many likes her last Instagram story got. She laughed suddenly, showing me the screen. Look, someone messaged me. Girl, that place looks expensive. He must be rich. She giggled, then glanced at me with a smirk. Guess I fooled them. I stared at her for a second, just letting the silence grow uncomfortable. She didn't notice. She was already typing a reply. I took a deep breath and asked, So, do you always judge people based on what they wear or drive? She didn't even look up. I mean, it's not judging. It's just being realistic. If a guy can't at least match my lifestyle, why waste time? I nodded slowly. And you think your lifestyle is what? Exactly. She put her phone down and leaned in, her voice going low like she was explaining something to a child. I date a certain kind of man. Men who take care of things. Who make me feel secure. Who don't make me question if we're going Dutch on dinner. Then she added with a little laugh. Like, no offense, but this whole date's been kinda cute. Like a little charity outing. That word. Charity. It hit harder than I expected. And I realized something. She didn't just want to be with someone rich. She wanted to feel superior to someone she thought was beneath her. And humiliating me in public? That was dessert for her. The waiter returned with the check. Before he could say a word, she grabbed it loudly. Oh, no. Let me see this, she said, waving in the air like a trophy. Let's see if Mr. Honda here can handle a 3-digit dinner. She looked around, making sure people heard her. Several heads turned. Some chuckled awkwardly. I felt heat rise in my chest. Not embarrassment, but fury. Not because she made me look small, but because she thought that was okay. She tapped the leather bill holder and slid it across the table to me. Go on. Impress me. The waiter stood there silently, eyes on me. I didn't say a word. I opened the bill holder slowly and then looked up at the waiter. I gave him a tiny nod. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. That's when everything changed. He straightened instantly, cleared his throat, and said loud enough for several nearby tables to hear. Would you like this added to your owner's tab, Mr. Carter? She blinked. Her fingers froze on the stem of her wine glass. Owner's tab? She repeated, confused. The waiter smiled politely. Yes, sir is the registered owner of this restaurant. You could hear a fork hit the floor behind us. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time all evening. And I just leaned back in my chair and returned the same polite smile she'd been giving me all night. I thought you just ran a couple businesses, she whispered, color draining from her face. I shrugged. I do. This is one of them. She sat frozen for a moment, then laughed nervously. Oh my God, why didn't you say anything? I looked her straight in the eye, because I wanted to see how you treat someone who couldn't offer you anything. Silence. Just silence. No giggles. No fake charm. Just the quiet sound of a bruised ego imploding. She sat there, stunned, like someone had pulled the rug out from under her world, and she was still trying to figure out where the floor went. Her face? A mix of disbelief, panic, and desperate calculation. She wasn't just embarrassed. She was scrambling. Wait, so you're actually rich? She finally asked, trying to sound playful again. That's crazy. I mean, I thought you were just being humble. I could have laughed, but I didn't. I just tilted my head and said, You mean you thought I was just a nobody? She paused, bit her lip, tried to salvage it. Look, I'm sorry if I came off the wrong way. I was just teasing. Playful banter. She was lying. Not very well, either. She was backpedaling faster than a bad stock on Wall Street. Honestly, I think that's amazing. I love a man who's low-key. I mean, real wealth doesn't need to shout, right? She smiled sweetly, touched my hand across the table. The same hand she barely acknowledged 20 minutes ago. Now it was like she was trying to hold on. To me. To the idea of me. But I was already gone. Not physically. Emotionally. I looked down at her hand on mine. then looked back at her face. "You weren't interested in me," I said quietly. "You were interested in what I could give you." She tried to speak, but I held up one finger. "And when you thought I had nothing, you mocked me. In public. Loudly. Just to make yourself feel taller." The smile faded from her lips. "So no, I'm not going to let you spin this into something it wasn't. This wasn't playful. It wasn't cute. This was a test. And you failed." I stood up slowly, pulled out my wallet, slipped a $500 tip into the bill holder without breaking eye contact with the waiter. "Thanks for the excellent service," I said. "Make sure the kitchen gets some of this too." He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. She stood too, reached out. "Wait, can we just talk for a second? Maybe start over." I looked at her for a long beat. Then I said something I've been saving all night. "You wanted to be impressed. So here it is. I know exactly who I am. And now, I know exactly who you are too." I turned and walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. And for the first time in hours, I could breathe. Not because I'd won, but because I'd seen someone clearly for the first time and had the strength to walk away. I didn't expect to think about her again. Not really. But the universe has a funny way of reminding you that the past has legs and it walks fast. The next morning, I got a text from Marco, the manager of the restaurant. Just 4 words. "Dude, she came back." I called him. "Wait, what?" He laughed. "Yeah, man. She walked in like she owned the place. Asked if you were around. Said she forgot something, her dignity, maybe." I shook my head. "What did you tell her?" "I told her you don't do reruns." We both laughed. But here's the thing, it didn't stop there. Turns out, one of the nearby diners at the restaurant that night was a food blogger. And guess what they posted on TikTok the next day? A story, not just about the food, but about a girl publicly humiliating her date, only to find out he owned the restaurant. The caption? "Modern gold digger versus silent millionaire. Plot twist of the year." It went viral. Over 3 million views in 2 days. Suddenly, people started recognizing the restaurant. People came in saying, "Is this the place from the video?" They pointed at the booths, trying to guess where we sat. And yet, business boomed. I didn't even plan it. But somehow, her worst moment became free PR for my brand. Karma's got a sense of humor like that. Then came the message. A DM on Instagram. From her. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were. But I realize now that I acted horribly. If there's any chance we could talk, maybe grab a coffee, just as friends." I stared at the screen for a while. I thought about replying. Something snarky. Something clever. Something that would give me the last word. But then I realized I already had it. That night, when I walked out and didn't look back, that was my closure. I didn't need to rub it in. Didn't need to post about her. Didn't need to prove anything anymore. Because she wasn't the first person to judge me based on appearances. And she won't be the last. But now, I don't chase validation from people who don't care enough to look deeper. So I deleted the message. Not out of anger, but out of peace. A few weeks passed. The video buzz slowly faded. The restaurant settled back into its usual rhythm. And I went back to what I always do, working behind the scenes, keeping things moving, and staying low-key. Then, something unexpected happened. I was sitting at the bar in one of my other restaurants. This one's cozier, less flashy. I was reviewing the wine list with my sommelier when someone sat down next to me. She was different. No heavy makeup. No designer bag on the counter. Just a well-worn journal in one hand, a black coffee in the other, and this calm energy that felt completely out of sync with the chaos around us. She looked over and smiled. "Do you mind if I sit here? The other tables are kind of crowded." I smiled back. "Of course. Please." We didn't talk much at first, but eventually, as people cleared out, we started chatting. About random things. Books. Travel. Her students. She was a high school English teacher. And not once did she ask me what I drove, or what I owned, or what I could offer her. She asked about my favorite author, my childhood, my thoughts on the best place to see autumn leaves. She wasn't checking boxes, she was listening. And you know what? For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. That night, as we walked out together, she pointed at my car. "That your Honda?" she asked. I braced myself. "Yeah, it's old, but it runs." She grinned. Reliable. I like that. She didn't care what I drove. She cared how I drove through life. A few months later, I took her back to the same restaurant from that night. Same booth, same lighting, different story. This time, the woman across from me laughed at my bad jokes, asked thoughtful questions, and when the waiter brought the bill, she didn't flinch, because she knew I could pay, and she also knew she would have stayed even if I couldn't. So here's the thing. They say money changes people, but in my experience, it just reveals who they really were all along. The right person won't need you to prove your worth. They'll see it when no one else does. They'll stay when the car is old, the shoes are plain, and the income isn't on display. And that's the kind of wealth no money can buy. In the end, this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about showing off. It was about clarity, the kind that only comes when you stop explaining yourself and let people reveal their true colors. I didn't need her to respect me after she found out who I was. I needed someone who could respect me before they knew what I owned. Because real love, real character, real connection, they're not built on bank statements. They're built on how you treat people when you think they have nothing to offer you. So next time you sit across from someone, don't look for the labels on their clothes. Look for the weight in their words. Because some of the richest hearts come in the quietest packages.